All right, thank you guys. Welcome to our MLB video here today for Monday, April 5th. My name is Brock Page and I do sports picks for free right here on YouTube. Despite a pretty dismal day on my Patreon website yesterday, we're still 7-2 in our last $9.99 daily best plays on my Patreon page. We're also perfect 5-0 in our last 5 college basketball tier package picks on that Patreon website as well. Now, we currently have over 1,175 members who are signed up and active on that site. And if you want to join those folks and get in on the action, link for that page is in the description section below. That's patreon.com/BrockPage. And with that, guys, we're going to start off with the 4 o'clock slate. I'm talking about the Blue Jays versus the Rangers, 4:05 Eastern start time. Now, Toronto's minus $1.50, totals 9. Steven Matz for the Blue Jays, Mike Foltynewicz for the Rangers. And it looks like, Texas is really taking a chance here on Folty. Atlanta sent him down to the minors early last season due to poor performance. I think it was only after like 1 or 2 starts. But Texas, they lost 2 of 3 opening day weekend games here against Kansas City. And they gave up a staggering 28 total runs in those contests. Now, consequently, Texas is currently dead last in the majors in runs allowed, dead last in hits allowed as well. They're taking on a Toronto squad who they had a real nice opening series with the Yankees. They took 2 of 3 from New York, including victories over Garrett Cole and Domingo Germán. And despite a sketchy 2020 season in New York for Steven Matz, the left-hander recorded over 150 strikeouts in each of his 2 seasons prior to 2020. Now, Teoscar Hernandez and Randall Grichuk, they lead the club in hits. Vlad Guerrero has a pair of walks himself. And when it comes to the total in this one, Texas is 3-0 to the over thus far in the season. All 3 of those contests got over the total of 9 runs as well. I'm going to lean toward the Toronto Blue Jays minus $1.50. And the over 9 runs. Wanted to call them the Toronto Blue Jackets. I've been capping a little bit too much NHL here lately. But anyway, next matchup, it is going to be Royals versus the Indians, 4:10 p.m. Eastern start time. The Cleveland Indians are minus $1.30, totals 9. Logan Allen for the Indians, Danny Duffy for Kansas City. Now, Duffy's coming off of 2020 where he had a 4.95 ERA and a 1.33 whip. As good as the Royals looked in their opening 2 games, they're coming fresh off a 7-3 loss to Texas in Game 3. Now, Kansas City's allowing 7 runs per contest on average, and they rank in the bottom 10 in hits allowed. They're taking on a Cleveland squad who's in the top 10 in hits allowed themselves, despite a tough 1-2 start to the year. Now, Logan Allen earned himself a starting spot in the rotation after a strong spring training. He had a .64 ERA in 4 appearances with 18 strikeouts. Jose Ramirez is leading the club in hits with 4 of them over the weekend. And when it comes to the total in this one, Cleveland's most recent outing with Detroit got over the total of 9 runs. KC saw all 3 of their opening games get over that number themselves. I'm going to lean toward the Cleveland Indians minus $1.30 and the over 9 runs. Next matchup, it is going to be Orioles versus the Yankees, 6:35 Eastern first pitch. The New York Yankees are minus 220, totals 9.5, juice to the over. Jordan Montgomery for the Yanks, Jorge Lopez for the O's. Now, Lopez had a solid spring training, 2.75 ERA in 6 appearances. Baltimore also got off to a great start to the 2021 season, sweeping the Boston Red Sox in 3 games. Baltimore's currently in the top 5 in runs allowed, top 5 in hits allowed. Now, center fielder Cedric Mullins had a staggering 9 hits over the weekend, and he currently leads the league in batting average. Baltimore has given up just 5 total runs in 3 games as well. Now, they're taking on a struggling Yankees squad who actually dropped 2 of 3 at home to Toronto to start this season. This is a pretty big number here for a team who, got off to a slow start. And Jordan Montgomery, he's got just 2 wins last season in 10 starts, along with a 5.11 ERA. Now, the Yankees scored just 8 total runs in their first 3 games of this very season, and they do find themselves in the bottom 10 in the league in scoring on average per contest. Now, total-wise, all three of New York's opening games fell under the total. No real surprise there. Not a whole lot of offensive productivity out of the Yankees. Meanwhile, Baltimore's 2-1 to the under in their last three themselves. I'm going to lean toward the Baltimore Orioles plus 1.5 and the under 9.5. Next matchup, it is going to be St. Louis versus Miami, 640 East. The Miami Marlins are minus $1.15, numbers 8. Trevor Rogers for the Fish, Daniel Ponce de Leon for the Cards. And despite a rough 2020 for Ponce de Leon, he still has career let's try that again. Ponce de Leon, he still has a career 3.78 ERA and a 1.24 whip. And despite a couple of losses in their opening series, the Cards still managed to score 6 runs per contest in those games, and that's going to put them in the top 10 officially in scoring on average per contest. Now, Paul Goldschmidt and Nelson Arenado lead the club with 5 hits apiece. Paul DeJong also smacked 2 homers in the opening series as well. They're taking on a Miami pitching staff who ranks in the bottom 10 in striking batters out after the weekend here. The Marlins dropped 2 of 3 to start the season, and they've also got Trevor Rogers on the hill here today, who finished last season with a 1.61 whip. Now, total-wise, Miami's 2-1 to the over thus far for the year. St. Louis is 3-0 to the over themselves, plus a bench-clearing brawl. I'm going to lean toward the underdog St. Louis Cardinals, minus 105, and the over 8 runs. Next contest, it is going to be Pirates versus the Reds, 9:40 p.m. Eastern start. The Cincinnati Reds are minus $1.55, totals 9.5. Jose De Leon for the Reds, JT Brubaker for Pittsburgh. Now, Brubaker went just 1-3 in 11 games last year, 4.94 ERA, 1.37 whip. Brubaker also walked 17 batters, and he also hit 3 of them in just over 47 innings of work last year. The Pirates lost their last 2 straight games to the Cubs, and they scored only 4 total runs in those 2 contests. Now, the Pirates are currently in the bottom 10 in the league in scoring on average per contest. They're taking on a Cincinnati squad who actually scored 27 total runs in their weekend opener, and they won their last 2 straight ball games as well. Now, the Reds are currently in the top 3 in Major League Baseball in scoring on average per game. They're also in the top 5 in the league in hits on average per game as well. Nick Castellanos currently leads the club in hits and homers. He knocked 2 out of the park this weekend, plus, got in the face of pretty much the entire Cardinals squad. Meanwhile, Jonathan India is batting .455 through a weekend of play, along with a couple of ribbies. Total-wise, since he's 3-0 to the over thus far in the year, plus Great American Ballpark kind of has a short porch. So I'm going to lean toward the Cincinnati Reds minus $1.55 and the over 9.5. Next matchup, it is going to be Mets versus the Phillies, 7:05 East. The New York Mets are minus 205, total 7.5. Jake DeGrom for the Mets, Matt Moore for the Phils. Now, Moore pitched in Japan last season, and he hasn't made a major league start since April of 2019. So I know the Phils got off to a great start. And matter of fact, they got off to an impressive 3-0 start to start the season, sweeping the Braves. But the Phils only scored 9 total runs in that opening series. They were pretty anemic offensively. They're currently in the bottom 10 in scoring, bottom 3 in strikeouts as well. They're taking on a Mets team who plays their first game of the 2021 season here today, and I'll tell you what, things should look pretty good for them with Jake DeGrom on the bump. Now, DeGrom had a 2.38 ERA last season with 104 strikeouts and just 68 innings of work. DeGrom also finished the year with a .95 whip. Now, total-wise, all 3 of Philly's games this year fell under the number. Combine that with DeGrom, I'm going to lean toward the New York Mets minus 1.5 and the under 7.5 runs. Next ball game, it is going to be Rays versus the Sox, 7:10 Eastern first pitch. The Tampa Bay Rays are the slight $1.15 favorite with a total at 9.5 runs. Michael Wacha for the Rays, Nick Pivetta for the Bo Sox. Now, Pivetta's never faced the Rays in his career, and he currently has a career 5.40 ERA with a 1.43 whip. Now, Boston got swept to open the 2021 season. I'll tell you what, this organization is in trouble right now, and they scored an embarrassing 5 total runs in that series. Now, Boston is currently in the bottom 5 in scoring on average per game, bottom 5 in hits. They're taking on a Tampa squad who won 2 out of 3 to open up the season. And surprisingly, they're in the top 10 offensively in fewest strikeouts per game, which is quite the contrast from where they were last season. They led the league in strikeouts per contest. Now, longtime Cardinal Michael Wacha, he's making the start here today for Tampa Bay. He's kind of just a solid, career guy. He's 60 and 43 overall for his career, 796 career strikeouts. And when it comes to the number in this one, I'm really not expecting a whole lot of offense in this one. Boston did see 2 out of their last 3 games stay under the total as well. I'm going to lean toward the Tampa Bay Rays minus $1.15 and the under 9.5 runs. Next ball game, kind of still in the 7 o'clock slate here. I'm talking about the Brewers versus the Cubs, 7:40 Eastern start. The Chicago Cubs are minus $1.15, numbers 5.5. Trevor Williams for the Cubbies, Brett Anderson for Milwaukee. Now, Anderson went just 4-4 last season with a 4.21 ERA and a 1.28 WHIP. Milwaukee lost their last 2 straight ball games, and they scored a total of just 2 runs in those contests. Now, the Brewers are in the bottom 10 in scoring, and they strike out a dozen times a game on average. They're taking on a Chicago club who's on a 2-game winning streak themselves, and they currently rank in the top 10 in runs allowed. Now, Williams had a 1.32 ERA in spring training this season, and he actually has a 3.09 career ERA against Milwaukee. And keep in mind, that was mostly pitching for a bad Pittsburgh team. Now, total-wise, all 3 of Chicago's games this season fell under the total of 9.5 runs. They're officially 15-5 to the under in their last 20 games hosting the Brewers at Wrigley. So if you're into historical trends, certainly keep that in mind. I'm going to lean toward the Chicago Cubs minus $1.15 and the under 9.5. And with that, guys, we're going to dive into our next matchup. It is going to be Astros versus the Angels, 9:38 Eastern first pitch. The LA Angels are minus $1.20, totals 10 flat. Jose Quintana for the Angels, Luis Garcia for the Astros. Now, Houston's off to a hot 4-0 start. That was a 4-game sweep of the A's in Oakland this weekend. The Stros are in the top 3 in scoring, top 5 in hits. Yuli Gurriel is 7 of 15 to start the season. 1 homer, 3 ribbies, 11 total bases. Meanwhile, Alex Bregman is also 6 for 12 himself with a couple of homers and 5 RBI. Now, pitcher Luis Garcia had a 2.92 ERA last season in limited action. He's taking on Jose Quintana, who makes his Angels debut here today. Quintana had a 4.50 ERA last season in just 4 appearances with the Cubbies. Despite a very encouraging opening day weekend for the Angels, they're still in the bottom 10 in runs allowed, bottom 10 in hits allowed. Now, when it comes to the scoring in this one, 2 out of LA's last 3 got over the total of 10 runs. Houston's 4-0 to the over to start the 2021 season themselves. I'm going to lean toward the Houston Astros plus $1 in the over 10 runs. Next ball game, it is going to be Dodgers versus the A's, 9:40 p.m. Eastern start time. The Dodgers are minus $1.65, totals 9, juice to the under. And if you like the A's in an upset at home here, they're plus 145 for some money line cash. Frankie Montas for the Athletics, Dustin May for the Dodgers. Now the hard-throwing youngster for Los Angeles, he went 3-1 with a 2.57 ERA in 12 appearances last season. The Dodgers are officially on a 3-game winning streak, top 5 in the majors in scoring. Corey Seager's off to a hot start, 8 for 12 with 2 doubles and 3 RBI. Mookie Betts is also 5 of 14 with a pair of doubles himself. The Dodgers are currently leading Major League Baseball in walks on average per contest as well. Now they're taking on an Oakland Athletics team who got absolutely decimated in their opening 4-game series with the Astros. The A's gave up 35 total runs in those 4 losses, and they currently rank in the bottom 3 in hits allowed. Now, Frankie Montas finished his 2020 campaign with a 5.60 ERA and a 3-5 record through 11 starts. Montas also had a terrible 1.51 WHIP last season as well. Now, when it comes to the number in this one, I'm not so certain Oakland's going to be able to score enough to help put this one over. They're in the bottom 5 in scoring on average per game, and they only average 2.2 runs per contest. Meanwhile, Los Angeles on the other side, they saw 2 out of their last 4 stay under the posted total themselves. I'm going to lean toward the LA Dodgers minus $1.65 and the under 9 runs. Next ball game, it is going to be White Sox versus the Mariners, 10:10 Eastern first pitch. The Chicago White Sox are minus $1.25, totals 8. Carlos Rodon for the White Sox, Justice Sheffield for the Mariners. Now, the Mariners did take 2 of 3 from the Giants this past weekend. They're currently in the top 10 in striking batters out. Now, Justice Sheffield, he actually went 4-3 last season with a 3.58 ERA. Pretty good season for him. They're taking on a very underachieving White Sox club who dropped 3 of 4 to the Angels to open up the year. Now, they scored 4 runs or less in all 3 of those losses, and they're currently in the bottom 10 in runs allowed. Now, Rodon had an 8.22 ERA last season in limited work, and as a matter of fact, Rodon, he's had an ERA of 4.04 or higher in each of his last 5 seasons. Now, total-wise, Chicago's last 3 straight failed to stay under the total of 8 runs. Meanwhile, 2 out of Seattle's last 3 got over that number themselves. Looks like an overplay here. I'm going to lean toward the underdog Seattle Mariners plus 105 and the over 8 runs. With that, guys, we're going to dive into our next and final matchup for the show. It is going to be Giants versus the Padres, 10:10 p.m. East. The Padres are minus $1.55, totals 8.5. Adrian Morjan for the Pods, Anthony DeSclafani for the Giants. Now, the Giants opened the season getting just absolutely roasted by Seattle and actually got swept by the Mariners. They're currently in the bottom 10 offensively in strikeouts, bottom 3 defensively in walking batters. They're taking on a Padres team who took 3 of 4 from Arizona, and they rank in the top 10 in the league in hits. Eric Hosmer's leading the club in hits. He went 7 for 11 over the weekend. And believe it or not, he only played in 3 of the 4 games. So 7 for 11 in 3 games. Hosmer's he's hit 2 bombs already in 15 total bases. Meanwhile, Jake Cronenworth and Will Myers each got themselves 4 hits apiece over the weekend as well. The Padres are in the top 3 in offensive walks per game. And I'll tell you what, just wait to see how much better this team gets when their stars start to heat up. Like the guys they're paying all the money to. Now, total-wise, 3 out of San Diego's last 4 contests did stay under the line. I'm going to lean toward the San Diego Padres minus $1.55 and the under 8.5. And with that, guys, we're going to dive into our quick pick recap, powered to you by my Patreon website. I like Toronto minus $1.50 over 9. Cleveland minus $1.30 over 9 runs. Baltimore plus 1.5 under 9.5 runs. St. Louis minus 105 over 8. Cincinnati minus $1.55 over 9.5. New York Mets minus 1.5 under 7.5 runs. Tampa Bay minus $1.15 under 9.5. Chicago Cubs minus $1.15 under 9.5 as well. Houston plus $1 over 10. Dodgers minus 165 under 9. Seattle Mariners plus 105 over 8 runs. Before I give you my next and final free pick for the video, one final reminder that we are 7-2 in our last 9 $1.99 daily best plays on my Patreon website. We're also 5-0 in our last 5 college basketball tier package picks on that Patreon page as well. I'm going to lean toward the San Diego Padres minus $1.55 and the under 8.5 runs. And with that, guys, that's going to do it for me. Don't forget to check me out on Patreon. If you guys decide to get a package here today, just keep in mind we'll bill you the day you sign up and then the first of every month following that. But most importantly, guys, got to thank you for joining me right here on YouTube. Really hope you enjoyed all this great free content, all this great free information. And with that said, happy Monday to you. Best of luck to you. And I look forward to seeing you later on today on my website at patreon.com/BrockPage.